Hello, beautiful souls. I wanted to take some time today to reflect on some recent learning that I've been lucky enough to receive by way of triggering people and being triggered myself, and also talk a little bit about the shift in energies that I'm feeling, and I'm sure a lot of you are feeling as well. So we just had solstice on the 21st. I really hope you guys had a great time. I was so blessed, still buzzing from it. We had a very beautiful day of going to a stone circle with a group of friends, and the whole place felt alive. It was really palpable there, the strength of the energy that was coming through Earth. And I met another sovereign soul there and had a really awake conversation that certainly sparked things within my head and connected dots. So that was beautiful, and I've stayed in touch with him. We went on from there to a meet with other friends, a bonfire where we did a meditation and shared love, shared energy, and it was beautiful. It was a cold, wet day for part of it. We got lost and ended up walking through bogs and getting very muddy. But it was interesting. Everyone was in such high spirits. Everyone felt so joyful. So me and four wise men travelled out to the bonfire and met many others there. And it just felt like unity. It felt like complete acceptance. Everybody there was friend. Everybody there was harmonious. And yeah, it was a really great time. So the solstice for me was all about the balancing of duality, so the sacred marriage of masculine and feminine as the divine feminine returns to our energy field. I think we've previously been living in this sort of weird state of almost semi-starvation on an energetic level, and that's now ending with this influx of light that's available to us if we choose to accept it. So along with that, the timelines that we've discussed previously merged. So this was the infiltration of the light into the dark. And interesting then that when I was at the stone circle, night fell along with a mist. And the whole place just looked ethereal. It felt like a place out of time. And in the darkness by the bonfire, we sang songs of joy and peace, and we brought more light to the world. So it all felt absolutely perfect, and I think very analogous with what was happening on an energetic level of these timelines merging and compressing into one. And it feels like for me that what's happening now as a response to that for some people is that they're going through a sort of a quickening process of being triggered by various different things, having different fear programming come up for them in order that they can look at it and hopefully heal some of that. So my experience, I don't want to say it's not attacked. I've been given opportunities for my own learning by having external interactions with people that have been seemingly on the face value quite negative. So I've been attacked again. Grace. I've had conversations, very strongly worded conversations with people about my belief that all is good ultimately. And this was a conversation about how to do energy work to protect the physical and auric self. And in that, I essentially said to somebody that this is helpful to a point, but not necessary. because there's a higher truth that all is well, all is always well, and that we're always getting what we need. So when we occupy a certain state of sovereignty, we don't need to do that kind of energetic work anymore. It's just implicit in our very being that we are sovereign and nothing can hurt us. And that triggered somebody who then said that was a dangerous line of thought, and that there are negative things and that we do need to protect ourselves. So we went back to the yes, you do, up until a point. So if you feel that that's helpful work for you to do it, but there will become a cut-off beyond which that's not needed. Aside from that, I've also seen people within the community be vilified for their thoughts, and that to me feels quite a difficult thing to navigate, because we know it's not our job to be the thought police. We know it's not our job to decide for other people, but we have to start embodying that in our actions and try to think and feel and then think again before we speak to one another, because we've talked about this before as well, that words are spells that we cast upon essentially ourselves, given that all is one. So if we're throwing out vitriol and negativity to other people, then all that's going to happen is that's going to cycle back to us in a karmic manner, and it's going to happen a lot quicker now that we've gone through this gateway. The energy is much more malleable and open to our creative influence. So you never need to do anything. You do what you want to do. But I myself need to be cautious, and I would potentially recommend this to other people who feel that it's going to be useful to them. We need to be mindful of what we're saying to one another as well as to ourselves. And there's levels to this stuff. So it's one thing to hold judgment within our hearts, within our minds, within the internal world. But when we externalize that and we take that energy outwards, it's a level up, and you've made that negativity manifest, and that will, if left unchecked, become a cancer to the community. When what we really ought to be striving for, and what we are on the bigger picture of things, is to become a united whole. And we simply can't do that if we're biting one another. Another experience happened yesterday when I attended a group meeting that's predominantly focused on bringing more love and light into the world, and thinking about ways that we can help other people to awaken, and what action we can take against the lockdown measures and so on that are going on. Part of that group is in a very, very fear state of mind, because they've heard information regarding army interventions and so on, and is seeking to militarize. Of course, for me, where I'm at, that doesn't vibe with me at all. It doesn't make any sense to me, because we cannot beat fire with fire. So when I objected to that, and I was asked, well, what will you do when the army come knocking on your door and hold you to the ground and make you have the injection? And I said, well, at that point there's no choice, right? There's no choice. I just have to let go and let God, and trust that given that I'm an immortal soul having this temporary human experience, there's no death anyway. So, it's so liberating to hold that knowing that I've been here before, I'll be here again. But I appreciate that not everyone does, and that's largely, I think, to do with what's been a huge agenda to discredit God and to move God entirely out of the equation, causing us then to seek other gods and other prophets in the forms of the 1% and the control system. But anyway, to backpedal a little bit. So after this question regarding what will you do if the army comes to your door, and I said, well, nothing. And I appreciate that's really confusing to some people, but to me that makes perfect sense. Then the conversation went around between other people. I wasn't privy to it, but heard about it later, that I'm a plant in the group, that I earn too much money, and people should be careful of me. Okay. I could, and what I did do initially when I heard this was jump to defending myself and countering all the ways in which those things were untrue, because they hurt me. They hurt me, and it made me feel undervalued, unvalued, and bullied, I suppose, to some degree. But I realise fully that my response is always a choice. How I choose to use the information that comes in is my choice. And my intention is always to transmute the negativity, which is what I'm hoping to do here and what I am doing by talking this through. I could also go down the line of saying, what does it matter what I earn? Why is that even a part of the equation? And where are you in terms of your programming that would be something that triggers you? My abundance or lack thereof is my responsibility and mine wholly, and your abundance or lack thereof is yours and yours wholly. It's simply the case that we manifest whatever we believe, and the more work that we put in, the greater the, for want of a better word, reward or balance. So, I'm sorry if it feels unfair, but I just don't see it that way. And I don't want to continue to defend that either, so I'm not going to. But yeah, I think generally what I'm seeing is an awful lot of triggering, a lot of division, a lot of judgment. And we have to understand that that's fighting fire with fire. This is the ways that we've been taught to think. We've been taught to mistrust one another, to see one another as dangerous. And that energy that's old energy now, and it really no longer serves us. It's not what's going to help us to get through this very difficult period of our existence. And if we keep feeding that fire, feeding mistrust, feeding doubt, feeding fear, then that is what will become manifest. It is. We have a choice in every situation, in every moment, in every minute. Do we choose love or do we choose fear? And it sounds like an oversimplification, but it really isn't. So the backbiting also said that I was deluded, because obviously my thoughts are so polar to theirs, so different. But I think it's good to get to the perspective of allowing each of us free will, allowing one another choice to believe whatever it is that's helpful to us to believe. And that's going to be different. There's a lot of different factions now that are meeting minds to think together proactively about how we move forward as a culture and what we would like to achieve and create in this reality. And some of those are from the truther community, some from spiritual, some have no interest in either, but just agree that the lockdown and Kung Flu stuff is all inflated. So we all have a commonality in terms of wanting something different and wanting to create together, but we have to choose wisely. And the deluded thing, again, I think comes back to the programming around God, and just that word God and Jesus. They're trigger words for many, many, many people. And going back, they were trigger words for me. I was raised in a very secular home, where if God was mentioned, it was mocked generally. So that was part of my belief system for a long time, and I remember if somebody introduced themselves and said that they were Christian, I would shut down. I would be unable to hear them beyond that. So heavy was the programming, right? So I've shifted beyond that now to and not having fear about the word God. I think it's just been made something that's meant to be a mockery, and that's been done again for a divisive reason, to pull our attention away from a God that is unified, that is non-judgmental, that is non-punitive, that is all loving, all giving, into the system that's been created by the nefarious factions here, into giving all that attention and all that energy to them, and seeking them out when there's an issue, and seeking them for knowing the path rather than looking within. So because of that, we're still doing that. A lot of people are still seeking outside of themselves, wanting to be guided, but not necessarily looking towards the light, and still immersing themselves in propaganda. And it's all part of the agenda. It really is. I think if you have issues with hearing the word God, you might want to just think about why that is. What is it that makes that seem so distasteful to you? Yeah. I think something else that's interesting, I think going back to kind of energy shifts, it feels like there's been distinct timelines, and I've been getting loads of synchronicity prior to the solstice that was all about Exodus. I will qualify again, I'm not religious. I think there's some truth in all religions, and I think if people need a framework within which to work, that's absolutely fine. Yeah, that's your choice. But me, myself, I don't ascribe to any particular religion. But yeah, so if I mention things that are of the Bible, don't assume. But Exodus came up as a big synchronicity prior to solstice. And there was loads of stuff about the emancipation of people, the unity, running from a certain negative thing into something more positive, the 10 Commandments, which have now been collapsed down wholly. And thy only commandment is love. That's it. We don't need anything beyond that. But it was strange, all this synchronicity, and it felt like it's almost like a sense that history repeats itself, or energy repeats itself, and it gets a chance. If it doesn't do things, if the highest outcomes aren't achieved the first time around, then it'll come back round for us to try again and bring more light to it. And I think that's what we've done. And now all the synchronicity that I'm getting is around Noah and the ark and the flood, which I realised that the bonfire felt really analogous for the groups that we're forming together, these smaller groups that are merging into larger groups, and the ways in which we all slot together and want to work towards this shared goal. And we are the ark, these connections, this web that we're building of love and trust between us. That is what will keep us buoyant. That is what will keep us out of the floodwaters. And the floodwaters are purely fear. That is what will sweep you away if you aren't careful. So, take some quiet time. Think. Look within. Feel. And don't deny any difficult feelings that come up, because they are your guide. And part of this whole ascension gig is for us to be evolving from using instinct into using intuition. So we have to become more heart-centered, feeling beings than we have before. We're being given a golden opportunity. With the light that's here now, the spectrum has increased massively, and we can tap into that if we choose to. But it is a choice. My beliefs are my own. And I will share them with anyone who asks, but what the other person chooses to do with that is their choice. And choice is key. We have free will to decide what we believe, what we follow, what we discredit. And given that we have that and we want that so vehemently for ourselves, we shouldn't be in a position where we're trying to deny that for other people. We shouldn't be telling them what it is that they should think or what they should feel, because that's just us acting as little programmed pieces of this control agenda that's been put in place for so long. We are not the thought police. We are not the controllers of anybody else's destiny but our own. So allow free will. Give way to that. Honour it for yourself and for others. Even I have issues these days with the whole trying to awaken the unawoken. And it's something that I've certainly engaged with, particularly with family members, because I really wanted them to be with me. And also selfishly, I wanted them to not think that I was so insane, as many of them do. But that's okay. That's their free will. And I do believe that there's a certain time for each one of us to awaken. And if it's not that time, then our soul isn't ready. And it would actually potentially be quite harmful for us to have that influx of information coming into us without us being in a state of preparedness. So let the sleeping lie. Let them be. They're working through their own soul progression at exactly the rate that they need to. It's all in their benefit. And all we can do, really, is be there to love them, regardless of what they think or feel. And just allow them to be, because that's all we really want for ourselves too. I've said this already, but it is true. Every moment is a choice. It's a choice between love and fear. And I do really believe that we live in a beautiful world, if only we can allow it. I think it was Brian Rose that said a phrase something like, I may not agree with what it is that you say, but I'll defend to the death your right to say it. And I wholly get that. That feels right to me. And that's what I'm trying to embody here and trying to encourage in others. We don't have to be in a state of total agreement with one another. We have to appreciate the commonality between us, which is that we want something better. We want more love. We want more fun. We want the ability to be left alone, just to be and do as we please, and have fun in whichever way we feel is good for us. So, yeah, I think that's my thoughts about that. We are moving towards unity consciousness and we're getting closer. This is just a little energetic squall where people are purging different negative energies within them, and it's perfectly timed, it's perfectly in harmony. And I certainly am going to now adopt the state of allowing. And with allowing comes my ability to forgive wholly and from the heart those that have spoken poorly of me and of others. Okay. I love you all very, very much. I'm very grateful for you. I hope you have a wonderful Christmas. Mine will be very quiet, but I will see some friends tonight and be with family tomorrow, which is great. So, love and blessings to you, and I will no doubt speak to you again. Bye.